Hello, this is Niswander, and you're watching the Nowman Show. I am here with Roman Lights in Paris, France, right now. He is part of the Gilets Jaunes movement and so much more, and we're going to get into that. Roman, thank you for being on the Nowman Show.
Thank you for inviting me, Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here.
And tell us who you are and what your organization is and what you're doing right now.
I'm just introducing myself as a simple citizen, which is having the skill to be able to speak a little bit English, which is not that common in France, unfortunately. And I'm a part of that Yellow Vest movement that started this huge, let's call it evolution, a few weeks ago now, like a month and a half ago now, 6 weeks. And I basically made a video a few weeks ago sharing that message that has been viewed by millions of people already. And this message is all about understanding what is the true reason why people are doing that Yellow Vest movement and not what the media are trying to reduce it to. So yeah, it's my pleasure to have an opportunity to spread that message across the world.
So originally, now to go back for those who may not know, first of all, Yellow Vest movement. Of course, I like to use the French words myself personally because I love culture. So Gilets Jaunes. So when I say Gilets Jaunes, I'm talking about Yellow Vests for those who are watching. How did this all start? What was the basic trigger of it?
So the basic trigger was basically Macron has been elected a year and a half ago by I think 25% of 40% of people who voted for him. So like he probably has about 25% of the French population who voted for him, but we still call that a democracy, which is a bit ridiculous when you think about it. 25% voting for someone, which means that 75% of the people didn't vote for him, but we still call that a democracy. This guy, which has been put in this position by the elite, the banking elite, just did an amazing job to unsatisfy everyone in France. In a year and a half, he did that amazing work to upset the young people, the unemployed people, the working class. He basically only satisfied the rich people, that's it. And they are not the majority in France. So after a year and a half of us being robbed, and he dismantled public elements, public structure of France, and sell it to the private and reduced privilege here and there, and increased privilege to the wealthy people. People were starting to get used to it. And then suddenly one day someone said, yeah, let's choose the 17th of November as the day when we're going to start our protest. And to the massive surprise of all of us, we actually found that we were thousands and tens of thousands outside. And that's how we realized that we were not alone. Like we were all together upset about the situation. Most of the French people doesn't really know why or what's going on with the European Union and what's really happening internationally. They just see that their salary is like the capacity to survive is getting harder and harder months after months. They don't really understand deeper the global economy and international relationship and all that, and how the whole global economy is entangled and in war with the poor and the middle class now. So yeah, they just get out. And the best way that I explain what happened is that it's like you're playing poker game for years and years and years, and you just end up losing and losing and losing and losing, and you're losing your dignity, and you're losing your hope, and you're losing everything, until one day you just basically stop, you freeze, and you're starting to look around and be like, hey, there's something wrong. There's just something wrong. I don't know what's wrong. I just feel that there's something wrong. And I think this is what the Gilets Jaunes is all about.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you talk. I mean, it seems to, well, it is a global phenomenon. The wealth inequality, and the fact that the general public here in the United States also, I would say, tends to be ignorant of not only current events and what's going on around them. As you said, the connection to the global economy. They also don't understand historically how we got here. There's still this misconception about what even, socialism and communism are in this country. People automatically think those things, and the general public now thinks that automatically just means authoritarianism. That's it. There's no other example of it, even though there's fire departments and police departments and public parks and libraries and things like this. They don't think, well, that's different. No, it's not. That's how it works. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to define it. So yeah, it's the need for education, and also to make the connection to other people, and we can go in later and elaborate more on the need for more compassion and understanding of just very basic, fundamental, things like that. So when people went to the streets, people were probably surprised then when there's thousands of other people to feel the way I do. So it was kind of like that same kind of vibe that happened with the Occupy Wall Street movement. But what's different now to me is what I want to get into as we evolve this story. But the first thing that I had come across was 42 demands, and I have on my phone here some information. A friend of mine had said, my wife is French, and in France, said there's a misunderstanding of the Yellow Vest movement. She said, I am seeing a lot of wrong information, so I prefer to explain a bit better. It is not just the tax on fuel. It is mostly that the Macron government cut the retirement paycheck for everybody, including my parents, and they increased gas and electric bills in all homes. All taxes were increased, property taxes, habitation, city taxes, income, except that the taxes for the ultra rich were cut. Yeah, that same thing happened here, essentially, in the United States. Macron does not care for the ecology. He did not increase gas tax to protect the earth, but to make more money. And a lot of us understand that too here that are activists. One of the best French environmental activists, Nicolas Hulot, I don't know if you know that, was ecology minister under Macron, but Hulot resigned because it was impossible to do anything sincerely for the environment in the government. So he gave huge tax breaks to the very richest and then tried to put the climate burden on the working class, so the working class are rioting. So they're not protesting globalism, they are protesting oligarchy and the domination of the very wealthiest. We live under class warfare and we lay down and take it. That's essentially what this person in Paris said.
It's a good summary. It's a good summary of the reason why people are upset. But it doesn't really address the core issue of what's going on, which is a really awakening of the failure of those so-called democracy. Because when the people try to protest against things like that, what the word assisted to was huge scenes of violence that the media tried to put on the behalf of the Yellow Vest, but the videos are quite explicit, showing cops beating up openly, using weapons against civilians, all young people, no matter which age, no matter which class. They used, I don't even know the numbers, like thousands of tear gas bombs over the last few weeks.
Rubber bullets also, shooting rubber bullets and things?
Yeah, rubber bullets who caused a lot of damage. I think we're now more than 10 citizens who lost an eye.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because of those so-called peaceful weapons. But yeah, there's a lady who died, an old lady who died from a lacrimal, like a tear gas shot in the face. Yeah, we had like hundreds of hurt people, and now like we're filling up complaint against the government, even like the Genève, I don't know the terminology, like they basically said that what the France is doing is going against all the international laws of peaceful protesting, because we are peaceful protesters. Like we just have mums and dads, and outside of Paris, most of the protests, I would say 99% of the protests are quite well organized and they're all peacefully happening. But in Paris, we know from like certain source that the government actually paid some policemen to wear yellow vest to create chaos, so they can then blame the yellow vest doing it, because anyone can wear yellow vest. It's actually quite easy to be an infiltrated cops and beating up people and hitting and being very violent in purpose in front of the camera. And we have so many example of them. We film them, like they don't even hide themselves anymore. They, like, a second before they're wearing yellow vest, and then the second after they're putting the police symbol on the arm and remove the yellow vest. They even do that openly, because they know that they control the media, so they can share whatever they want. The people would believe it. So I think this is what most of the French people who were complaining about the reason that you just exposed realized, is that there's something much, much deeper that is wrong in our so-called democracy. Because if people who are peacefully protesting are beating up this way, like, what does it tell about our freedom of expression and the country of the human right? Like, what this is all about. Like, so yeah, I think this is what really people are starting to realize now. But it's a long process. It's a long process, because we've been educated for so long to believe that if you disagree with someone, just go out and scream and yell, and then they will do whatever they want anyway. So, and when you do that for like a year, 2 years, 10 years, tens of years, and you still see the things getting worse and worse and worse and worse year after year, you're like, there's something wrong in the way we've been educated to manifest our disagreement. And this is where the referendum initiated by the citizen is coming on the scene.
Yeah, and so now let's get into that, actually, because it's evolved into referendum initiative.
Initiated by the citizens.
So exactly, explain to us how that started and actually what that is.
So, like, in simple term, it's called a RIC, RIC. So referendum initiated by the citizens. It's a terminology that already exists in many places in the world. Like in Australia, they call it the CIR, citizen initiated referendum. There's many expression of it in many countries. I think even in California and in America, they have a form of a referendum, but it's not exactly like the core essence of the RIC is the capacity from citizens to trigger national referendum from their own initiatives. So that's that simple idea. So a referendum is when you ask the rest of the population to vote for an idea. So normally we are electing people to make decisions on our behalf, but what is new with this idea is that we can keep people in power. Like, they can actually be elected and they can keep their seat and be parliament or senators or whatever. But we want to have the power, the constitutional power, to express our opinion, not in a peaceful and protesting way, but to impose that legally to the power in place. So, like, so far, the only people upset or disagreeing with this idea are people who think that people will be stupid enough to make stupid things. But the truth is that we all have common sense. Why? Because normal people are directly exposed to the mistakes that they're doing. And when they do something stupid, they get consequences and they learn from that perspectives. But when we're starting to study how the elite is operating, like, the elites are doing really stupid things, but they don't learn about it because they have nothing to lose, because it's always the population which is paying for them. And this is actually defining a psychotic behavior. Like, a psychopath is someone that basically is doing the same mistake over and over and over and over again and never learn from it, because they never really get to face the consequences of its action. And this is what is creating that sensation of impunity that this elite is getting through, and never really learn anything because they never face the consequences of that. Like, the only thing that they're facing is, oh, we're not going to be re-elected, like, after years and years and years. And now they're getting into a point where whoever is not re-electing, they're going to find ways to recycle them into whatever businesses in the private and in the public. So those people are really starting to create that kind of caste that is controlling the whole system. And we haven't yet realized that the only reason why those people are proliferating is only because we are powerless. We cannot stop them legally. Like, and that's such a simple statement to realize. Like, the whole idea of the RIC is realizing that we have been programmed to be powerless constitutionally. The fact that in the constitution, we, the people, doesn't have a legal tool to stop the people in power, to control them if we want to, is the reason why, no matter what we're going to do in the street, no matter how the Occupy, for example, movement were programmed to fail, is that they didn't make this analysis that if you're not changing the constitution and give the people the rights, the legal right to trigger a national referendum, then you will be condemned to be controlled by the people who just going to tell you what you have to do and what is good for you. And that's what the RIC is about. The RIC is about realizing that simple idea that we have been programmed to be powerless, not because we are powerless, because we are the power. We are the true power. The power doesn't come from the elite. The elite most of them couldn't even cook an egg, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
The true power is coming from us. We are the people making the value, creating exchange, producing value. And the fact that we do not have our word to say except going through our representatives says a lot about what we can do. So yeah, like, what I'm saying most of the time is that when you want to buy a car, you know, like, you educate yourself about the value of the car. Like, you go and you check the tire and check the brand and you check the security, the safety and everything, the kilometers, the motors, everything. When you want to buy a house, you do the same. Like, you're not an expert in buying a house, but you're checking the plumbing, the electricity, the location, the market, the street, the environment, everything. When you want to educate yourself, when you want to go and do study, you also do the same research, like which university is the best, everything. But as soon as we're starting to talk about your future or the organization of the society that you're a part of, then you don't have your word to say. It's all about people who are wiser than you or more clever than you who can make decisions for you. And this has to stop. People need to understand and realize that, no, it's not true. Maybe you are not, like, no one on earth has all the wisdom, has all the knowledge. And this is why the people in power today are surrounded by teams of people who are guiding them and giving them advice and everything like that. So we all agree on the fact that not one person can actually do anything, but a group of people can actually do something pretty cool. So why not extending that to the whole citizens, like the whole nation? Why are we thinking that a group, an oligarchy, a group of people can do better than all together? Like, this is just a ridiculous idea when you think about it.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all, because like we know today that people like Trump or people like Macron doesn't work by themselves. They have teams of people for everything that they do. So we already recognize that teamwork is necessary. So why we could not have a right to ask to the whole society, what do you think about this idea? Instead of voting for people who are going to make our decisions on our behalf and not being accountable for them. That's the whole idea of the RIC.
Well, do you think that the French people are, well, they don't seem to be as complacent, maybe, as in general as the U.S. population, but do you think there's a lot of ignorance about what you're talking about, or just the fact that people don't realize that they do have the power within themselves? They can empower themselves, and together it actually can make a difference. Do you think the French people now are starting to wake up to that fact that, hey, you know, I'm an individual, yes, because that's what's touted in the system, which dominates, you know, but at the same time, we're a part of a whole, and isn't that greater than the individual? You know what I mean? So again, another common sense factor. And speaking of teamwork, are there plans right now to start creating a specific kind of referendum initiative for the unification in the process of this?
So just to give you a bit of story about the RIC is something that exist in many countries, like Switzerland, for example. I know you know Switzerland pretty well, and Switzerland is famous to be quite a balanced society, like where things are working pretty well. Why are they working pretty well? Because over there, like when you have 100,000 people who come together, they can, like if 100,000 people sign a petition, for example, they can ask like the rest of the population, what do you think about this idea? And if the idea is validated, then it's automatically validated into the law. And that's that simple idea that, like when you realize that Switzerland is using that and the rest of the world, every democracy, so-called democracy, because the word democracy mean power to the people, demos people, kratos power, so power to the people. But which power are we talking about? Because if the people don't have the powers, so therefore, like we have the power, but we basically give it away. Is that what we call democracy? Because that's not what the spirit of democracy is about. The spirit of democracy is that people should be allowed to exert their power upon the nation or the specific domain. And so the RIC is existing for years already, and it's only in France since probably 8 years then a teacher, a law teacher, economics teacher, Etienne Chouard, starting to really question the validity of our so-called democracy after what happened for the Maastricht referendum. Like basically, we've been asked by the president to do a referendum. So we can, like the French people could say, do you want to go into the European Union or not? And the French people said no. So then they changed the text and move a few dots and comma here and there. And then a few years after, from the Lisbon Treaty, they didn't ask the referendum to the French people anymore. They actually asked the parliament, what do you think about that text? And the parliament said yes. So the French people said no, but then the parliament said yes. And the parliament is normally the emanation of the people. And the parliaments normally should express the people's opinion. And that's when that teacher realized, but wait a second, like if the power comes from the nation and the nation, if the nation said no and the parliament said yes, so what are we talking about? Like where this democracy is? And that's how he's starting to study the origin of democracy and came back to the Greek democracy and really found out that it was actually the opposite of what we're living today, like that the citizens of Greece were actually military, like they were all weaponized because there needs to be able to fight against the oppression, and the oppression will not only come from the outside, it can actually come from the inside.
That's right.
Which is something that the Americans learned. Like they learned that they have to keep their weapon, because as long as they're going to keep their weapon, they're going to be able to keep their government under control, which is now getting a bit more complicated, of course. But yeah, the fact is that today, if we want to stop the government in France, we are not weaponized. So the only tool and weapon that we have is peaceful protest. And the peaceful protest, which is a weapon that has been used by Gandhi in India, actually worked pretty well. Like It doesn't have to be violent. We actually found out that by being peaceful, the impact, especially in a social media epoch, can have much more power and much more leverage than frontally attacking the system. Because first of all, we are not organized to be able to fight against so powerful people and trained. And second of all, like it's useless. It's useless to be violent because it's a waste of energy. It's a waste of resource. Like thinking that bringing war to countries can actually bring peace. Like this is just an outrageous idea, because nothing can be further away from truth. When you bring war to a country, you bring chaos and disorder. You never bring peace, ever. Like violence and force is never the solution.
That's right.
And that's what we're going through now. That's what we are realizing now. So just to give you a number, like a month and a half, when I was asking to people, have you heard about the RIC? I would say that probably less than 1% of the French people in the street knew what it was. 6 weeks later now, I think we're getting close to 80% of the people who know what the RIC is. So that don't all of them fully understand what it is and how we're going to implement it and everything in details. But at least in a month and a half, we came from 1% to 80%, which is like tremendous.
Wow.
It's really tremendous.
How long did it take to get
6
to
weeks. 6 weeks because now like the media are talking about it. Everyone is talking about it because that's the main revendication. Like instead of wasting our time asking for, oh, we want more solidarity, or we want climate change, or we want like more, like whatever, instead of wasting our time begging for solutions to be implemented, we only want to be powerful. That's that simple idea. Like, why asking, begging to be listened, or to ask to the people it's that tricky situation where you have the power and you gave your power away, and now that you gave your power away, you're begging to be listened.
Right.
You're like,
That's
it doesn't make any sense.
I love
I just
the way
have
you
to
present that.
get the power back. That's it. I just get my power back, and then I will apply that power. That's it. Like, let's be clever for 1 second, because and I'm sorry to repeat it again and again, because
No, it needs to be
I have so many
repeated.
people. I have so many people asking me questions online, and every time they're like, okay, what do you think about the left and the right and blah blah blah? I say, guys, who cares about the left and the right? You don't understand that this is all division game. You don't understand that this is just wasting time. Get the power, and educate your brothers and sisters, and you're going to see if the left and the right would still exist in 10 years from now. Like, the left and the right are only emanation of that division pattern, like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, left, right, religious, science.
Yes,
it's all
that's
about
right.
separation. It's all about, like, why do we have to choose? When you get the
Yeah.
power, like, you can have your opinion, and then if the majority of the population follow you, great. If not, then yeah, you need to work on your education. We don't have to fight around those ideas. So my message is really clear: peaceful protesters, smart civil disobedience, no political parties, no religion, no union, and only one revendication, which is a referendum initiated by the citizen. And it's really makes their life really tough to attack me, because, like, I don't fit in any box. I can't fit into a racist box. I can't fit into political box, into religious box, into they can't hate me, because they don't have any things to put me in.
Yeah.
So they try to spread false things, but yeah, it's funny, because I think people are much more wise than we even think they are, and that's what the RIC is all about: is allowing natural wisdom to be expressed.
That is fantastic. I really appreciate that you have done this, and it's an honor to have this conversation. And my focus has been essentially on cultural and economic transition, but I see that continuing. But I see RIC as being a way to help educate myself and others about how to really do what needs to be done for the whole, as well as not leaving out the individual, because and I like that, because nobody can attack you when you're really for everyone, right? It's brilliant. It really is. Thank you so much. And let's stay in touch. Absolutely. To make sure that we know who's who and what's what, and what friends do. So I feel like I've made a friend today. This is fantastic. Roman, thank you so much for taking part of your evening. It's morning for me. In the Los Angeles area, but stay in touch. And again, thank you so much for being on the Nowman Show. This is share your light with everyone, wherever you are. And you're watching the Nowman Show. Until next time, always stay in the present moment, always.